Games Corner is a unique console-based gaming experience with 3D and LED screens, all within a comfortable atmosphere. Become a Games Corner franchisee now and bring this one-of-a-kind opportunity to your location. For more information, visit us at gamescorner.com.
Hi everyone, this is Ahmed Karimli and welcome to Be Efficient TV. The mission of this web TV show is to boost the efficiency of your business and life through tips and tricks from leading experts. And today I have with me Rand Fishkin. He is the co-founder of Moz and inbound.org. Welcome to the show, Rand. How are you doing?
Thank you very much for having me, Ahmed. I'm well, thank you.
My pleasure. So what's your background before Moz and what are you currently focused on?
Sure. Actually, it turns out that I don't have much of a background before Moz. I dropped out of college in 2001 and basically have been working at the company that eventually became Moz ever since. So Moz is kind of my only professional history. I don't really have any other jobs in the past. Prior to being, in the role that I am now, which is essentially I'm a contributor to our product strategy and our marketing, a lot of our evangelism. I'm also on our board of directors, and obviously I'm the co-founder. But prior to that, I was Moz's CEO, and before that, even I was an SEO consultant. And even before that, I did web design and development, all at the company that eventually turned into Moz.
Why did you step down as a CEO, and like contributor? What does that mean? What exactly you do?
So individual contributor is just my funny, idiosyncratic way of saying I get to do the things that I want to do that I'm good at. And I don't have any people managing responsibilities. So there's basically no one in the organization reports to me directly, with the exception of my executive admin, Nikki. And in terms of stepping down as CEO, well, there were a number of reasons. Some of the big ones included, I was very deeply unhappy at the time, even depressed, and didn't feel confident or capable in leading the organization through a period of sort of change and turmoil. I was very disappointed with the product that we had produced up to that point. And things have gotten much, much better now, and you can see that reflected in our numbers and in the quality of the product and all those kinds of things. But I was definitely feeling really down about that. So, I also knew that long term, I did not want to be the CEO of a public company. And Moz is, on a slow trajectory, but on a trajectory to eventually have an IPO, go onto one of the public markets, probably here in the US, likely the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. And so knowing that was something that wasn't something I wanted to do long term or was passionate about, it made sense for me to promote our longtime COO and my great friend Sarah Bird to the role of CEO, and I think she's doing a marvelous job in that position, and I think she'll continue to do a great job.
So is it because you are a bad CEO, or it's less fun when it's a big company, or what? Or just like there is a shift in your goals that you want to relax? And if you step down, most CEOs, when they step down, they don't want to be close to the company and be a contributor or get involved in the decisions. So why did you do that?
Yeah, I definitely took an alternate tack there. I am still very close to a lot of the decision-making process here at Moz, still very close to the company. I certainly have not been relaxing. I would say I work as much as I ever did as CEO in this new role, just doing different kinds of things. And I think the primary reason, I don't know that I was necessarily a bad CEO. I think I was not as good a CEO as I could have been or should have been. And I feel some guilt about that, but I think it was more a question of I was not passionate about the things that a bigger company needs from a CEO. Those were not the things that inspired me, right? And those are a lot of things around finance and reporting and metrics and data stability around people. Yeah, I did a lot of that. I mean, I was responsible for it. I did it. I think I did an okay job with it. I just didn't love doing it. It wasn't, it wasn't the kind of thing that got me excited. And so I really wanted to refocus on the two areas of the company that I care about deeply, and that is kind of the product and engineering world and the marketing. And I think that I can be more effective as a contributor on those things than I could be as a people manager and a builder of process and a responsible for finance and all that kind of stuff.
What are the financial problems that your families or you were facing before starting Moz, and how did you start Moz?
Yeah, so when I dropped out of college, my family's pretty, here in the U.S. is what would be considered middle class. Well, I guess now they're a little more than middle class, but my dad was an engineer at Boeing, so he worked on, planes. My mom ran a small business that was essentially a small marketing business. They made a little bit of money, but I think my parents' combined income when we were growing up was in the, in the 80s, it was in the $30,000 to $40,000 range, and maybe in the 90s got a little more than that, $40,000 or $50,000. So pretty solidly middle income. But my dad was a big saver. He saved a lot of money, and so he had a lot when he retired from Boeing, which was just a few years ago. And in 2001, when I dropped out of college, my parents' financial situation was fine, but my mom had a little bit of debt in her business, and unfortunately, over the next 5 years, that debt grew tremendously. So by 2006, we had almost $500,000 in debt on that business, which is really super rough, right? And just kind of terrifying to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Thankfully, we were able to pay it off. Not entirely, but we paid off the credit card companies such that they wrote off the debt, and so we didn't owe them any more money. And that was great to get through that experience, but I think it was a pretty rough time.
What is Moz? What are the services that you provide?
Moz is primarily, almost exclusively a software company. So we make software for professional web marketers to be able to mostly help them with their SEO efforts, and a little bit with content marketing, social media marketing, and some aspects of outreach and PR and online visibility, but very centered around SEO. And that's a personal passion of mine. So it's an area I'm really glad that we can help people with.
So it's just like analytics software, and brings like data from social media, replacing, let's say, more data than Google Analytics, or what it is exactly.
Yeah, so Google Analytics would be visitor analytics, right? They show you people who visit your website, what those people do on your site and where they came from. Moz is really about showing you data from external sources, like where are you getting your links from? Who's talking about you on the web and what are they saying? How do you compare against your competition? When you see data around your rankings, what other competitors are in those ranking positions? We'll do a crawl of your website and show you sort of errors and missed opportunities, things that you should be working on, all that kind of stuff. So it's a little more prescriptive than just analytics. I'd call it, there are a lot of raw analytics data, but not the same kind you can get from Google Analytics. And then there's a lot of insights and suggestions inside there too.
So if I'm a Moz Pro member, is that means that I should not use any other software in terms of analytics? In terms of SEO?
No, definitely not that. So Moz actually has a partnership with Google Analytics, and we integrate Google's visitor data inside our platform. And we actually recommend lots of other kinds of software. So depending on who you are and what you're doing, you might think about using something like a Mixpanel in addition to Moz, right, which will give you kind of detailed customer data around your product usage. You might consider an analytics package like a SumAll, which will collect together all sorts of things and put them together in pretty dashboards. You might consider another analytics product, maybe like a HasOffers or a Tune, both of which are around like mobile analytics data for app developers. So there's tons of analytics products that I would recommend out there. Moz is certainly not an everything in one. It's really designed to help you with SEO and kind of the channels around SEO, a little bit of social, a little bit of content, that sort of thing.
Now you have your own crawl, which is called Mozscape. What does that mean?
So Mozscape is like us trying to replicate the back end of Google's web infrastructure. Essentially, we're trying to crawl the internet, or most of it, particularly important parts, and show you where all the links from pages are pointing to, who's pointing to what, what's more important than what. And then we try and build a lot of metrics on top of that to say, how trustworthy are these sites? How trustworthy are these pages? How spammy are these sites? We'll try and look at and say, what are some metrics that correlate well to how sites and pages perform in Google's rankings? And that's what we call domain authority and page authority. So that's kind of our goal with Mozscape, is to build a web index that's based on links.
Do you think that will develop into a search engine?
Probably not. And the reason I say that probably not is because a search engine does have a lot more technical hurdles to cross, other than just the ones we've built today. But also, a search engine that no one uses isn't particularly valuable. And I don't think we would ever try and compete in the consumer world of getting people to use our search engine instead of Google's. I really think that our data is designed to help people understand how they perform in Google and how they can improve their performance in Google, as well as Yahoo and Bing, to the extent that those players have some market share as well.
Back to the title of contributor, is that means that you don't want to have pressure all the time and you are the spokesman of the company, doing the interviews, doing the media, having the credibility of like you founded the company regardless what's going to happen? Because it's kind of double thing that you are kind of representing the company, but again, you are not responsible fully of the performance of the company.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I still haven't completely divorced myself from responsibility for the performance of the company.
What's going on inside you? Like when you see something wrong, you see something that you don't like, what's going on inside you?
I mean, I still get insanely frustrated, right? Moz still feels very much to me like my baby. And even though Sarah and I will occasionally disagree, I think 99 times out of 100, when something's wrong or something's broken or something's fisting, I don't feel it's any less of my responsibility to try and go help that happen. What is the case is that I don't have the way that my involvement works, right? So it's no longer I have people reporting to me who have people reporting to them who are directly responsible for this, and I, sort of grade their performance and I work with them to improve it and those kinds of things. It's really more that I try and chip in where I can be helpful. I try and identify problems and point them out to people, identify opportunities and solutions, and then I let people run on their own. And it's also the case, I'd say, that I certainly do a lot of external evangelism, to your point, but I still have a tremendous amount of pressure on me, both personally and I think externally, because while I may not be the CEO of Moz, I think most of the world who knows me as Moz still thinks, if Rand's doing well, Moz is going to do well. If Moz is doing poorly, that means Rand's doing poorly.
Yeah, you see even the number of interviews that you do comparing with the CEO. So you can just call the CEO and tell her that change this, or like they consult you on these things, or like you just see the things happens and then you give your opinion. Or you're just a consultant to the company.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more of a consultative presence, but a permanent consultative presence, right? I'm more like like an investor from a board of directors perspective, and more like what I'd say is a trusted voice inside the company, but a trusted voice who's not a manager of it.
You are not salaried, you're just a partner.
I am salaried as well, yes. No, I have a very nice salary from Moz. In fact, I thought it was very kind that when I stepped down from the CEO role, the board decided that they didn't want to change my salary. So they still have a very nice salary.
With no pressure, less pressure. And how much you own of the company now?
Sorry?
How much you own of the company now?
My wife and I together own I think it's just about 24%.
Right. How did you raise capital for the company from 1.1 million in 2007 up to 18 million in 2012? And is there another plans more to now the next step is IPO, or what is the next step?
Yeah, so in 2007, we raised 1.1 million from a couple investors, but that process was actually the opposite of most venture capital processes. Michelle Goldberg from Ignition, Kelly Smith from Curious Office, they actually pitched me. They sat down, took me out to lunch a bunch of times. We're like, Rand, we think you can build something special. We'd love to fund this. And they convinced me to take money, which is really weird. That doesn't usually happen. In our subsequent rounds, we tried to raise money a few more times in 2009, 2010, 2011, and we actually failed at that. But in 2012, I started talking to some investors early in the year, and one of the people I reached out to hoping to get introductions to investors was actually Brad Feld from Foundry. So for some reason, I thought that Foundry only did early stage deals, and so I figured they weren't a match for us because we were trying to raise, between 20 and 25 million at that point. And Brad, it turned out, once we got on the call, he said, "Yeah, I can introduce you to some great people, but let me tell you why you should take money from me instead." Which, again, was one of those just really positive experiences. And I think it was a week after that phone call. Is it a week? Maybe it was only 5 or 6 days after that phone call, we basically had a handshake deal on the agreement. So it was just a wonderful process with Foundry. I love those guys. I think Brad is a tremendous investor and has become a great friend too. And I would say, for the future, Moz is at some point in the long term looking to do a public offering. I would guess that won't be in the next 3 years, but it might be in the next 5 or 6 years. And to do that, I think Sarah is pretty passionate about trying to raise one more round of funding, maybe next year, maybe the year after, mostly to support some growth efforts and to give her some capital to be flexible and to potentially try some acquisitions. We did have some nice success with a few of our acquisitions.
But you are like in the positive in terms of like profits. Why you do that? Is it the point to increase the value of the company and maybe dilute more from, give the investors back some more money?
Probably not. We probably wouldn't do a round where investors take money off the table. I think that would be unlikely. But we would do a round for primarily the reason that we can accelerate the growth rate, and we can do things before our competitors could do them or before the market sort of tolerates them from a financial standpoint, and we can kind of grow ahead of our budget. So we're on the cusp of profitability. I think we're cash flow positive, but still losing a little bit of money kind of on the from an accounting perspective. So pretty close to break even. But that being said, there's a lot of things that we wish we could invest in. I think in particular that Sarah wishes she can invest in that we couldn't do. So there's some small startup out there that we really like. We think they're super cool. Maybe it cost us $2 million to acquire that company and bring the team on board. We don't really have that $2 million to go spend right now. We could, but it'd be very, very risky. If we put another $30 or $40 million in the bank, we can do that, right? We can make those investments. Another really big one is, we'd like to grow our web index and our data substantially. That requires a big investment of servers, and we've made a few of those big investments. We'd like to make even more before we have the income to support it, because we think that the market will reward us if we can make those investments. So, I'd love to go spend $6 or $7 million next year on new hardware. That'd be pretty risky at our current, with our current cash situation. So those are kinds of reasons that we would raise money.
So content creation versus SEO, is it like a 80-20% relation focus, or how you put it?
Well, you can't do SEO without content, right? There is no ability to rank unless you actually have content to back up those rankings. However, that being said, what I would say is that there's a lot of folks who invest in content creation, that are not thinking strategically or even tactically about SEO when they do it. And I think that's a missed opportunity a lot of the time. If you are investing in content creation, what I would urge marketers and small businesses and startups of all kinds to do is to think very carefully about, who am I trying to reach with this content and why am I trying to reach them, right? Is this content made for early stages of my funnel? I'm just trying to build brand awareness. Am I trying to make people aware of my product and my company? Am I trying to get people to convert? And depending on those, you probably have different sources of traffic that you're trying to send to them. And search engines are almost always in that equation, no matter where in the funnel we're talking about. And so I really urge people to mix their content creation strategy with SEO, to have deep understanding of SEO, understand what works and what doesn't and why and the factors that go into that, and apply that to your content, because otherwise you're missing out on a huge opportunity to drive traffic.
Yeah, but the problem of SEO always, like, there is a change, always, like, even when you hire different companies, each company has a different strategy, so you don't know really, you have to test. Like for my website currently, I am working with more than 2-3 companies to test each one what will do and then measure the results. So if someone starts a blog today and run it for 2 years, blog on daily basis, another one is doing the same blog or something similar but with SEO, like how long it will take the one who's just doing nothing to have some of the pages or the blog posts ranked on the first page of Google, comparing with the other one who is doing SEO? Like, how much is the period of time?
It's actually, it's a funny question, because it's possible that without doing SEO, you could rank better than the person who is doing SEO, depending on how you're doing it and what you're doing. And the reason that exists is because some bloggers inherently are really good at describing their content in the same way that the search engines are, and at gaining a lot of influence and amplification, lots of links, lots of social shares, lots of on-site engagement, lots of people talking about them. And those are things that the engines care deeply about. And so sometimes you'll have those unintentional success stories from the blogosphere in particular. But that being said, if you are doing SEO and if you're doing really smart strategic SEO, then part of that SEO should be all of those good things, right? How do we get amplification? How do we create content that people want to share? How do we get the press interested? How do we make ourselves earn links? How do we choose the right keyword targets and title our blog posts in a way that is going to both draw in search traffic but also be very compelling for people who might share it in other places and doesn't sound spammy or manipulative? So if you combine up those things, I think you're going to beat anyone who is doing content creation but not SEO.
So let's start by on-page SEO, like where to start, what to do in terms of headings, in terms of links, how many links it should be. Some people say that if you put so many links it will reduce the juice of the SEO work, meta tags. Tell us more about all these details, what we should do on page.
Yeah. So actually, there's a blog post that I would urge you and your readers to go check out, and that's called. It's basically my illustrated guide to on-page optimization, and I go through in a very detailed style, like all of these different elements. And there's lots of them that used to be true that no longer are. So you bring up, for example, the dilution of link juice or link equity through having too many links on your site or on your page. And back in the days when PageRank was the primary scoring system that Google used, right, the old school, original 1998 PageRank, yeah, that stuff actually mattered. 10 years later, which is now 6 years ago, it didn't matter almost at all. And today it's virtually completely useless. The way I think about, links on the page, or how long should a page be, or how many images should I use, how long should my video be, is what's right for the user. What's right for your audience? Do they want really long videos? Do they want lots of images or only a few? Do they want lots of links to external content, or do they only want a couple? What's going to be most helpful for them? Because the best thing that you can do for your SEO is really about improving your engagement and your ability to earn amplification. And so it's become much less about the technical, well, I put this keyword in my meta keywords tag. The engines don't even use meta keywords tags anymore, right? Or I position this term at the front of my title tag instead of as the third word in the title tag. That stuff really doesn't compare to the value that you're getting from, hey, I increased the engagement so that people are now spending on average 2.5 minutes instead of 2 minutes on my page. And people are now sharing it at a rate of 1 in 1,000 instead of 1 in 10,000 people sharing it. Those things will have huge impacts on your SEO compared to, kind of the little nitty-gritty of where to place a keyword or how long to make content.
Yeah, like just one point regarding that, the links, like on the interviews of Be Efficient, we have a section where we are putting maybe 10 links of the websites of the guest plus the social media. Some SEO experts advised to keep it, some others said no. So now the point, if it's helping what I understood, if it's helping the users to have a better experience, then keep it.
You perfectly nailed it, right? So the value from an SEO perspective, right? When Google is looking at the page, or Bing's looking at the page, Yahoo, whatever, they're going to analyze and they're going to say, hey, is this helpful to users? And they're going to look at a lot of other things, off-site signals, external things. They won't probably look directly at your Google Analytics and say, like, how long did people spend on the page? But that's a great leading indicator of all the things that the engines do look at. And so as you improve that, you're going to improve your SEO. So I would urge you to think like, hey, should we link to every one of Rand Fishkin's social profiles? Well, maybe not. But let's link to the 3 where he's most active. Should we link to every site on the web he's ever contributed on? Nah, that probably doesn't help anybody. But let's link to the 2 or 3 where people are really going to find value from it. That's what's going to help you the most, because that's what's going to help your users the most.
How about the meta tags? What to use? Like, shall we use Yoast or certain plugins to do the meta tags? How to deal with that?
I like the Yoast plugin for WordPress. I think it can kind of nudge you in the right direction to get some of that, those last few details of SEO right. So I'm a fan. I would say, though, that one of the problems I've seen is many bloggers, many websites that use WordPress install that and then don't pay any attention to it and think, because I've installed it, I'm now doing good SEO. That's not true at all, right? Like you have to go do the work that the plugin is suggesting, right? So if you're writing a title tag and you can see like, hey, this is a keyword I want to target, well, you should make sure that the page is really on that topic and that the meta description has a compelling description of not just the page content, but also why it's applicable to a searcher who's just searched for that phrase. And the same thing is true in your title. The same thing's true, all across the board. I think my lights just went out.
No problem. How about the slug or URL? How to do it? Like to put the title of the post, copy paste, how long it should be?
I like URLs that are of readable length, right? So basically, I think it's fine to use the title as the slug, but what I really want to see is, number one, can you try and get the keyword in there? If you can't, that's okay, but I would bias to try and get the keyword in there. And then the second thing is I would try and make that URL legible so that when someone sees it in the search results, they go, aha, I know exactly what that's about. Yes, that matches against the title and the description and what I'm trying to accomplish. You're really trying to create that information scent, right? So that when a searcher types in their keyword and they see your result, they go, yes, that's the one I most want to click. I think about it more as an ad for clicking on your page than for anything else.
How about tags and categories? Like how to use it? Shall we display the tags on live on the site, put it in the back end? Shall we have lots of categories and just tags in the back end? Which strategy to use?
Most of the time, I personally prefer categories over tags, but I think reasonable people can disagree. Again, it really goes back to what's valuable for your users. So when people are visiting your site, are they going to want content via tags? Are they going to want it via categories and subcategories? How do they find the navigation to be most useful? And that's what I target with your stuff. And so depending on how broad your topics are and how you're organizing things and how much content you have, you might consider one, the other, both. But it's not a huge deal for SEO specifically as much as it is for SEO indirectly through user engagement and user happiness on the site.
And how about if the category is like directing, like each post is within, let's say, 6 categories? That will not affect the SEO if it's helping it, if it's under those 6, no problem with that.
If that's accurate, if that's where people really should find it, no problem at all. I think when people start to get spammy and they try and put every post in every category so it maximizes the link exposure and da-da-da-da, you're playing the old, page rank game from the late 90s, early 2000s, and that's not going to work at all. And you're diluting people's ability to find good content when they do click on the categories. That's going to harm your SEO more than it'll help.
How about the headings, like heading 1, heading 2, heading 3? We should use it in each post, or how to use that? And what else in terms of on page we have to do, other than the things that we spoke about?
Yeah, I mean, for the detailed level, kind of this tag, that tag, I might check out that post that I wrote on the Illustrated Guide to On-Page Optimization. But for the heading in particular, I like the H1 tag or the heading tag. You can use H2 or H3 if for some reason your WordPress install is using some different CSS classes. That's fine. But for that heading, the one that appears at the top of the page, I try and make that match the title tag of the page and what the searcher has just clicked on. Because you don't want them to click on something and then get to a page and the headline is different from the title element they just clicked. That creates a dissonance that's going to make a lot of people click the back button. And you really don't want that, right? One of the big things that will positively impact your SEO is if when people click from the search results onto your page, if they stay on that page and they're having a positive experience there and they're browsing across the rest of your website, that tells Google this was a great answer to that query. If they click that back button and they choose another result, that tells Google you didn't answer that query. So almost everything you're going to do on the page with your content, with your tags, with your headlines, with your titles is all about serving that searcher and making sure they're going to be happy so they don't click back and choose somebody else.
How about the comment system? Like some people use social media, they link it with the Facebook, others use Discuss or other plugins for the comment system. What you like, what you don't like?
I bias to Discuss because I think they've done a really strong, solid job, unless you have an audience that is very engaged on one of the social channels. So if you know, for example, hey, a lot of my readers are using Google+, and I see amplification of my blog through Google+, and a good example of that is like a lot of people in the photography world are very heavily on Google+, and so there's a lot of photo blogs where they bias to use Google+ for their comments. I think that's actually pretty smart. Same story with Facebook. If you know that your audience is like hugely into Facebook, a lot of mom and dad, parental blogs are like this. Their audience is heavily on Facebook. That's where all the sharing happens. I think using Facebook's commenting system for those blogs can make great sense too. So it's about choosing which matches your audience best.
Okay, let's jump into the keyword search. Like how should we do the keyword search? Should we use general terms, or like we use a keywords for each blog post that we do? Which tools to use to choose those keywords?
So I like, maybe every quarter, every 6 months, or even every year, depending on how often you're doing it, going through and doing a big keyword research kind of process, right? Saying, here's all the terms and phrases that I really wish I could be, at the top of Google for, creating that list, using AdWords, using Search Suggest, or a tool like keywordtool.io to broaden out that list, doing some research on other sites, right? Looking at what are people searching for on YouTube, what kinds of content is being created around this topic by using a tool like BuzzSumo, and then aggregating all of those together, maybe in a Google Docs or an Excel file, and saying, all right, here's my big list. Now, which ones do I want to write about this year? And what I would do is I really like saying, hey, I'm going to pick 20 or 30 or 40 of these keywords that are really important, and I'm going to truly target them. And the rest of this list is going to be a nice to have. It's going to be hey, if I'm passionate about this topic, if I feel like there's something really new and unique to say, great, I'll write about it. If not, you know what? I'm going to let my own creativity and imagination drive my titles, drive my content, because I think a lot of bloggers get very limited when they think only in terms of SEO keywords, and they lose out on the potential of driving a bigger audience through content that's really exciting and unique and doesn't necessarily target a keyword. So I think it's smart to have hey, these are the keywords I'm really chasing. These are ones that are nice to have, but you know what? I'm not going to let this keyword universe limit what I can write about. I'm gonna be as creative and imaginative, and I'm gonna work to the passions of my audience.
Long tail, short keywords matters more or rank faster? Which one you like more to start with?
Well, I mean, so all that passionate stuff that you're writing about, that's going to be in the long tail, right? It's kind of invisible. You don't really see how much the keyword volume is, but it can work tremendously well. And usually the competition is a lot lighter, so rankings are much easier. They just don't send as much traffic per term. And oftentimes you can get a lot of links and mentions and engagement and amplification, all of which can help your entire website because of those positive signals that these posts are earning. Now, in terms of the head of the demand curve, that's where competition gets really heavy. And I love being able to rank for those terms, but I think it's folly to think, hey, I'm going to target keyword XYZ, which is really hard, really challenging to get to. And, if that post doesn't succeed and it doesn't rank for it, well, I failed, I'm going to give up, I'm going to move on to the next thing. I think it can be really smart, actually, to say, I know that it's going to be hard to target this keyword, and I'm willing to invest multiple posts, try and, produce something on a regular basis that's targeting that, see what sticks, see what resonates with people. It's okay to have multiple pieces of content targeting the same keyword phrase, so long as there's individual unique value from those posts, and those are real posts that are going to resonate with people.
So those, like we are talking now, you produce more relevant content regarding specific keywords. How about off-page? Like what we should do? Like where to put it? Listings, local, listings, other stuff. What we should do in terms of off-page?
Yeah, I do think there's a few places where you could go out and sort of build or acquire links directly. So I think it's great to go after blog rolls. I think it's fine to go after local or industry niche sorts of, resource pages. I think it's dangerous to chase link directories. Most directories are going to get you into more trouble than they will help you. And, there's just a huge amount of risk around link spam in Google these days. The same is true for any sort of manipulative system, right? So a blog carnival, private blog networks, anything where you buy links on Fiverr to get listed in all these places, submit yourself to 500 directories and search engines. That type of stuff is super dangerous. It used to be the case that Google would just ignore those links. Nowadays, they will penalize you, actively penalize you, maybe even ban your site from Google for engaging in those kinds of link practices. So I would shy away from them. What I do think works really well in terms of off-site and earning links is getting exposure to the right kinds of people who might link to you. And a lot of times that means social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, Pinterest, maybe Instagram, what have you. And a lot of times it also means reaching out over email to expose your content to the right people. If you know that, hey, this writer at this particular website often talks about this kind of thing, I've got what I think is a great piece of content on it, I want to share it with them. Maybe they'll link to it, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll share it on Twitter, maybe they won't. I don't care. I just want them to see it. Send them an email. Build a relationship. Starting a relationship on the web or in person if you can is a great way to eventually get the links and the signals that you need to rank well.
How about some SEO companies doing kind of a blog post, but they are not as high quality as the blog post that you publish it on the main site, and they put it on certain sites out there with the link directly to your website.
That's dangerous territory. There's a few times, like there are cases where, a guest post will occasionally make sense, right? Someone from a blog you really admire and respect invites you to take a post that you created and republish it on their site, and they'll link back to you, and you're like, yeah, you know what, that makes sense. That audience is someone who would like this post. It's great. They're going to link back. Cool, let's do it. Or they invite you to write something for their site. Awesome. But if it's one of those things where it's, hey, here's a guest blog directory, or here's an article posting service, or I'm an SEO guy and like I'm kind of shady. I'm going to go out and get you 50 links by putting your post on 50 different sites that I know will take any old crap that you give them. That's no barrier to entry, right? And that stuff it occasionally works for a short period of time, a few weeks, a few months. But then you get penalized, you get banned, and now you've got to rebuild your blog from scratch and try and disavow your links. And that shady SEO person who did it for you, they're just going on to the next client. They don't owe you anything. They can just walk away, but you are stuck with the pain and heartache of having those links hurting you. So
how to rank like a specific keywords? Like most SEO companies, when you work with them, they put, let's say, a list of certain agreed keywords, and they start doing some of these off-page strategies, and sometimes they link them indirectly, like 4 times or 5 times into between different sites, then to your site, to try to kind of trick Google or I don't know.
Sure.
So how you can really rank quickly for certain keywords? It's only based on what you post on your site internally in terms of your content on page?
So really, if you are trying to rank very quickly and you don't care about ranking for very long, then go ahead and engage in that manipulative stuff, right? Like I don't work in that world, but like gray hat, black hat SEO folks, that's what they specialize in, right? It's basically ranking quickly, but for only a few days or a few weeks before a penalty hits and then the site never ranks again. If you're trying to rank in the long term, what you need to do is build a website and a brand that Google is going to love. And Google is only going to love things that people love, specifically people who influence what gets shared and talked about and written about on the web. And so your job really becomes doing PR and brand amplification for your site and earning the credibility across your industry, your niche, your space, and many other adjacent industries and niches. And then once you have that, once you have a website that's a real brand, right, that people know and love and return to, that has lots of good links, that gets lots of shares, that gets lots of mentions, ranking gets easier and easier and easier because everything you publish, people start reading and sharing even before you've done any work. As soon as you hit that publish button, people are coming in and checking it out. They're following you on Twitter. They're checking out your Facebook feed. They're subscribing to your RSS. They're looking at what you publish on LinkedIn. They're, direct navigating to your site and seeing what you've written. That's awesome. That gives you the power to be able to rank for almost anything just by hitting the publish button. The problem is it takes a really long time to build that up.
How long?
And if you're not willing to put in that work, then your only way to rank quickly is to do manipulative stuff that is going to hurt your site or fail or, only last for a few weeks.
How long it takes? A long time.
I've seen people do it in as little as a year or two. But I think for the vast majority of folks, we're talking about a 2 to 5 year commitment to build up a site where you really have that brand strength and power. This is not an overnight process, but it is a competitive advantage.
Like if there is a very good blog with daily or every 2-3 days a blog post, very high quality, what is the traffic per month, the healthy traffic per month that would you expect to that, over 1 year or 2 years?
It totally depends on the topic. if you are in a space that's really hot, say you're writing about travel, which is a hot space, lots of people searching for it, lots of people checking it out, you can expect, maybe in your first year you might be able to do 250,000, 500,000 visits, and years later 1 million or 2 million visits. But if you're writing about plumbing in Western Virginia, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, like, you'd be lucky, right? Because you're talking about a very local area, a small niche, not a lot of people pay attention to it. So it totally depends on your area of focus. And I wouldn't try and compare yourself against the big blogs out there that are hugely successful. I'd try and compare yourself against the sites that are in your space, that specifically are talking about the same things you are.
Which social media platform is the most important to Google? Like, is it Google Plus, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest?
If you're talking about directly important to Google in terms of is most likely to help you get rankings, it's probably Google Plus. If you're talking about broadest reach that can expose your content to the most people, that's still Facebook in most areas, and occasionally it's Twitter, and very rarely for some professional niches it's LinkedIn. But I would say that if you are planning to only be able to invest in, say, 1 or 2, maybe 3 social networks, I usually think about Facebook and Google Plus, and then I think about, now, where else is my audience? Are they on Pinterest? Are they on Instagram? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Twitter? And then I go after that third one.
How about, like, if I have 10 pages and I'm using, let's say, Hootsuite or Buffer to publish the same content in different times using these softwares, is that like, it's okay to do that, or it has to be different content for each page, or what do you think?
I think it can be okay. I would just make sure, it's very dependent on, like, are you being empathetic to your followers, right? If your followers are like, hey, I'm on Pinterest and I basically want to see the same image with the same text that someone on Facebook wants to see, and that's pretty much the same thing someone on Twitter or Google Plus wants to see, then you can post to all 5 of those at whatever different times you want with the same content. That's fine. However, if you know, hey, you know what, a lot of my followers on Facebook are the same ones I have on Pinterest, I should change it up a little. Then go ahead and do that. So it's really about what's right, what's empathetic for your users, how much crossover you have, which networks, what timing. There's some consideration in there.
Is there any platforms or softwares for distribution, like distributing content, that you can recommend?
I like the ones that you've talked about, right? I'm a fan of Buffer in particular, and I know plenty of folks who really like Hootsuite. I believe HubSpot also has a built-in service.
No, I'm asking you in terms of your content on the blog, not the social media platforms for distribution.
Yeah, so there are some paid content, what I call kind of content remarketing platforms, places that you can go, Taboola, Outbrain, the Google Ad Network, Facebook's social advertising, where you can promote and push your content to reach more folks by paying, and I think that's just fine. Again, I would go and look at those services, those websites, where are they delivering content? Who's their audience? Is it right geographically? Is it right topic-wise? Is the cost structure work for you? And then I test. So you might say, hey, you know what? I'm going to have a $100 budget on each of these networks, and I'm going to go test how far and wide I can reach on Taboola versus Outbrain versus Zamanta versus Google the Google Ad Network versus retargeting platform. Maybe I'm going to use one of those, and I'm going to try Facebook social ads. I'm going to try some Twitter ads. Awesome, go do it. And now take the data that you get back and say, how many people did I reach? How many of them were the right people for me? How far did it go? How much did it cost me? Which ones am I going to keep investing in based on that data?
What to do to speed up like a WordPress site, because it matters in terms of SEO, like which hosting to use? Is it like WP Engine is the best, or like some people still have speedy websites on GoDaddy or Bluehost? What do you think?
I mean, so I would say that's actually an area where I don't have a ton of expertise because I haven't done a lot of speed testing across hosts. I have been very impressed by WP Engine. I think they're great. They're a little expensive, but quality is extremely high, speed is extremely fast. Heather Berner is the CEO there. I'm very impressed with her, so I like them a lot.
Best SEO plugins
Best SEO plugins
for WordPress.
Well, we talked about Yoast. I like that a lot. I've been kind of impressed with, I'm not sure it's public yet, but Full Contact has done something quite cool. I might check those guys out. I've liked some of the plugins from Zamanta in terms of recommending other content and being able to recommend your own content in the footer and build a network. That's pretty cool. Trying to think of other ones that I might check out. I think those might be the few for right now. There's probably a couple others, but I haven't deeply enough researched in the last few months to give you a few. But I'll check some out.
Is having a footer on your site or sidebar is very important for SEO or not?
It's not very important for SEO. I think it can be good for just web standards, right? People are accustomed to being able to scroll to the bottom of the page and see your contact info or get to your most important pages from there, see your social accounts, get your address or phone number. So I like having a footer. I think it helps to make it clear where the page ends and to provide that information. But I wouldn't worry about it too much from an SEO perspective. In fact, I'd recommend against shoving a bunch of links for SEO into your footer. I've actually seen that penalize people's websites pretty directly.
Is the transcription will add a great value, let's say if you transcribe your videos in terms of SEO or not?
I have seen very positive effects, and not just for SEO, but also for user engagement. And here's the reason why, right? So you and I were chatting about SEO plugins or about content remarketing networks, and someone might say, hey, I wonder if when Ahmed and Rand were chatting, they talked at all about Zamanta. Well, there you go. You can do a quick search. You can find it right in the copy. You can see where it was in the conversation. You can fast forward to that point in the video if you really want to watch it. It's just a great service to users. And it does help the engines also know what you've written about. So if someone searches for, podcast plus Moz plus Zamanta, they can find this podcast specifically. If it's only in the video, it might be harder for them to know. So you can improve your long tail traffic.
How about if I have 2 languages on my site or 3 languages? How should I do the meta tags for the same post and other details?
I think you do have options, right, in Google to basically set, subfolders or subdomains if you want as different languages on a website through Google Webmaster Tools. That's certainly one way to go. And you can also do different versions in the subfolder structure. So you basically say like, this is moz.com/en, which is English /blog post, and here's moz.com/BG, which is Bulgarian, and then here's the blog post in Bulgarian, and I'm going to link between the two of them to say that. But, you can specify, if you like, you can specify language in the headers. It's not absolutely essential, but I think it can be friendly for crawlers and engines.
Any SEO companies that you recommend, expensive or affordable, like 3 here, 3 here, 2 here, 2 here, or people to work?
Yeah, actually,
like membership sites in terms of SEO, yeah.
Yeah, if you search for recommended SEOs or recommended SEO list, Moz is the top result for that, and I've got a big list of companies that we recommend, so you can check that out right on the web.
What is inbound.org?
Inbound.org is a project that Dharmesh Shah from HubSpot and myself created. HubSpot now owns it and they sort of run it, but I still participate in there and help out. And the idea is people submit great content from around the world of inbound marketing, stuff that marketers care deeply about, statistics and blog posts and new reports and news. And then there's good discussion around those topics as well. So it's a good place to go if you want to kind of keep up to date on what the industry is thinking about.
What's your strategy to create content efficiently?
For me, it really starts with saying I'm going to limit the quantity of content that I create and focus really on quality. And in addition to that, I try and limit myself to saying I only want to cover areas of content where I think no one else has done a great job or no one else has talked about it in the same way I have, which is different from a lot of what other content marketers will do. The other thing that's been a great tactic for me is to write about things online where I've had great offline conversations to as a catalyst for those. I really pride myself on saying, like, hey, if a conversation resonates in person, someone's eyes light up, they get really into it, that's probably a great topic for a post. And if you start talking about something and they're like, sounds kind of boring, I don't care, then it probably is a crappy topic for a post. So that's what's helped me keep efficient.
Share with us some of the tools or softwares that you use that makes you really efficient, more efficient.
Sure. So I'm passionate about like kind of two tools for the social web. One of them is Follower Wonk, which is now a Moz tool, but I use that a lot for searching bios, for analyzing my account, for looking at other people's accounts and seeing who they follow and what they care about. And the other tool that I totally love right now is BuzzSumo, which lets me research content that has gone hot on the social web, what types of content people care about, what's worked and what hasn't, who's shared content. So those are both great. And I'm actually a big fan of Twitter's new analytics platform. So analytics.twitter.com, you can see like all this data about how your tweets have performed. I check that out pretty frequently. And then another one that I use to kind of keep up to date on what's being talked about in certain industries is Fresh Web Explorer. It sort of gives me alerts around, someone's linked to this or talked about that, mentioned that. A good competitor to that is mention.net for those who are interested. It won't show you links, but it will show you mentions, kind of a better version of Google Alerts.
What's your daily life and work routine look like?
Madness. I travel a ton, so when I am in Seattle, I'm usually I usually wake up pretty late and I go to bed very, very late. So I'll wake up between 9 and 10 a.m. and go to bed between 2 and 3 a.m. And I'm pretty active with meetings all throughout the middle of the day. And then I usually, I walk to work and I walk home, have dinner with my wife, and then I'm usually blogging and answering email and building presentations and like doing my work between about 10 p.m. and 2 a.m.
Any hobbies?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy traveling. I love spending time with Geraldine, my wife, and just going and investigating new places. I actually love seeing animals. So like if we go on a trip somewhere and we can we were in South Africa recently and we did a little bit of whale watching, got to see some rhinos and all sorts of other cool animals. So that's a big hobby for me.
Who are your top 3 mentors?
Oh, let's see. Over the years, it's kind of changed, but I would say our investors have been big mentors to me. So Michelle Goldberg from Ignition and Brad Feld from Foundry. And then another big one for me has been Dharmesh Shah from HubSpot. He and I chat and get together and built up a real friendship, and it's been very cool to see HubSpot go public, and hopefully Moz can try and do that too someday.
Top 3 apps that you use on your smartphone.
Let's see. I started using Instagram. That was like I was a holdout on that social network, and I'm now figuring it out, trying to learn it because it's so hot with the kids these days. I use the Twitter app very heavily on my smartphone. And then what else do I use? I mean, standard stuff, right? Gmail and Maps. I don't use Facebook very much. I use the Google Plus app. I think TripAdvisor has done a pretty good job making their app a lot better in the last couple of years. So I've been using that, especially overseas. At home, I use Yelp. Overseas, TripAdvisor has much better coverage.
Top 3 favorite books.
Oh, that's too hard. No way, man. Let's see. I love Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. I think that's definitely one of my favorites. I really like Sherman Alexie, who's a Seattle Northwest area novelist. He writes great stuff, Native American. And third one, gosh. There's a great book called The Billionaire Who Wasn't. I really enjoyed that. That was a kind of a businessy book, more biographical, but I like that one a lot.
Top 3 people that you're inspired by.
Very inspired by Bill Gates. I think what he's done since leaving Microsoft has been pretty remarkable. Let's see. I'm actually really inspired by Moz's CEO, Sarah Bird. She just her ability to deal with complexity and hard things is amazing to me, and I love seeing her do her work. I think maybe the third one out there, I was recently in South Africa, I mentioned, and Nelson Mandela, I think, is an example. One of the only people in the political world that I've ever been really impressed by. I think it's sad that the world lost him last year, but it's remarkable to see what his legacy has been like.
Top 3 movies.
Jeez. I think this has to be our last question, because I've got to run.
It is.
But, let's see, top 3 movies. I actually had a lot of fun watching the Lord of the Rings movies that came out a few years ago. Those were great. Enjoyed those a lot. Maybe for the other 2, they're not my favorite movies of all time, but I'll try and name some recent ones that I saw that I thought were pretty good. I really liked a movie called Frank and Robot. It's kind of cool, just a quirky film, but a fun one. And what else? I think maybe my favorite movie of all time is probably The Royal Tenenbaums by Wes Anderson.
Last question, what are the things that makes you really happy?
Really happy. My wife, Geraldine, makes me incredibly happy. Helping people, I love helping people. I love helping people and then see them, take off and do great things without my help. That's really inspiring. And then I think it also makes me, I love being in nature when I can, getting away from cities, seeing animals in the wild. That makes me deeply happy too.
Thank you so much, Rand, for this very deep technical details. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Oh no, it was a great talk, Ahmed, and I'm looking forward to getting it posted.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Be efficient and stay efficient, and see you soon with another leading expert.